This is Gerardo Dalio with my co-host, the world famous Nick Hodge, and this is episode 1 of Bizarro World. What can you expect from Bizarro World? Expect lots of insights and smart talk from my co-host on junior resource stocks, the markets, hunting, and a lot more useful and wise chatter from Mr. Hodge. What should you expect from me? Expect a lot of ranting and raving on just about whatever comes to mind. Expect me to tell you things like why I would let Rihanna sing to me the ABCs and I would pay for an album of Rihanna singing the ABCs, and a bunch of other useless facts and opinions. From time to time, we'll have guests on the show. We'll have some smart people. We'll have some people that think they're smart people. And we'll talk, of course, junior resource stocks. We'll talk life. We'll probably offend some people. So if you are easily offended, you should probably get the fuck out now. I will wait a few seconds. Are they gone? I think so. All right. Now that we've rid ourselves of the boring people, Nick, how are you doing, sir?
I was just going to say, I'm either going to leave or I'm one of those people who thinks they're smart. I don't know what to do.
I need you, Nick, to provide the smart talk and a little reason. You will be the mature voice on this podcast. I promise you that. So please don't leave, because if not, it's going to get ugly probably.
I'll be here to chime in.
How is life?
We're doing good, brand new start to the year, 2019. Looking forward to it. Expecting a baby boy here in April. Things are going good. Can't complain. I think we're in for a resource bull market, which we've been waiting for a while. And I'm glad to be out of the mire that was 2018. That was just sort of a clusterfuck of a year all the way around. So good. I'm good. How about you? I
think that's well said. I'm great. 2018 was absolutely a clusterfuck of a year. I'm glad that we're into 2019. I think we have to look back a little bit before we look forward. And I'd like to start, if you don't mind, by giving out some awards. I think we should give out, 2 or 3 awards in 2018 before we look forward. Does that work for you?
I got a few names down. Sure.
I love it. Let's start with on a positive note. Let's start happy. Who is the best IR person for you in 2018? And when I say the best IR person, I mean somebody that responds to emails when they put news out, somebody that sends emails out contextualizing the news, people that make themselves available, people that are actually working at the shows and not just drinking their ass off. Who checked those boxes for you?
Even the good ones drink at the shows, Gerardo. You know that.
Guilty.
I have Sean Thompson from Atlantic Gold. I think he does a fantastic job. I think that's a tight run ship from top to bottom, as it is with the Moose River Consolidated Project in Nova Scotia. And in fact, it was you that introduced me to him a couple of years ago. At this point, I think it's been at the New Orleans Investment Conference, and I've been following the story ever since. My readers have doubled their money, sold, bought back in, and now it looks like the project is ramping up, and there's some exploration upside as well. I know we're talking about the IR person and not the project, but Sean is doing those things that you just said. He's emailing you when news come out. He's making sure you know what the guidance is. And he's just generally keeping you informed. And from my seat as a newsletter writer, he's showing up when I give talks at the various conferences, and he's putting his face in the crowd, and he's letting you know that he's there and that he's reading what you're writing, and just generally trying to be involved. And that's his job, right? I know it's his job, but he does a really good job of it.
I have to agree, and I don't think it's a coincidence that Atlantic Gold has performed the way it's performed, and they've executed wonderfully here over the past 24, 36 months, getting that project up and going, built, finance. I think the cost on the per ounce cost are top tier, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right, Nick?
I think lowest cost of any junior producer in the world. I mean, it's like $560 US or something obscenely low. So yeah, it's quite cheap.
Fantastic. Well, on my end, I'm going to have to go with Brian Slusarczyk from K92 Mining. He's now the special capital markets advisor, some fucking title, but the bottom line is he does IR for K92. This is someone that the minute there's news out, I get an email 5 minutes later with his take on it. Really does an amazing job of hammering home the main points. And I mean, he's active. The bottom line is, whether I'm on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on the Resource Stock Digest website that you and I co-own. He is all over the place and like Sean, gets the job done. So yeah, those would be my two. Is there anybody else that stands out to you?
Well, I was going to say, I think it's funny that both of our picks came from sort of lower mid-tier up-and-coming producers. It seems like they have a bit higher level of maturity, I guess it is, when it comes to telling their story and being in the market because, and this is just my gut take, there's actually some accountability there, right, when it comes to guidance and cost and numbers as opposed to a junior where it's a lot more telling of the story and not as much accountability. And I just think that accountability translates given that both of our top picks were actually producing gold.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Anyone else that deserves an honorable mention on your part?
Yeah, sure. If we're doing honorable mentions, I think Liz Monger from Midas Gold is great.
You beat me to that one. Damn you, Nick.
and I think although he wears multiple hats with multiple companies and sends a lot of emails, I think Sean Perger is pretty good. He's always in there elbowing for his companies, trying to get them coverage, and again is at all the shows and is showing support to the newsletter writers and the people that show support to his companies. So I think he's pretty good.
Absolutely. Can we nominate Amir Adnani? Oh, no, he's not an IR person. He just wears all the hats, right?
You and I think exactly the same. He was going to be my pick as well. That's funny.
I just spoke with Amir yesterday. It was a great conversation, but man, that guy can talk and he's factual and knows his stuff. So he definitely goes to bat for his companies, all jokes aside. It can't be all positive, Nick. Let's talk some negative. You had something to say. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say the exact same thought. I had him on my list as IR person as well. That's funny. He does a great job. He's always going to bat for his companies, be it uranium or gold. So, I mean, you can't knock anybody for that.
You can't. Shareholders should be happy with the performance they get out of Amir. Like I was saying, it can't be all positive. What was the biggest disappointment for you company-wise in 2018?
What was the biggest disappointment? I have 4 names written down.
And man, for me, you're rough, Nick. I thought I was the one that was going to piss people off on this podcast.
It was a rough year, man. We started out by saying that it was a pretty bad 2018. And so I looked at personal holdings. You know, there was a lot of disappointments out there, but I looked at things that disappointed me and my wallet personally. And one of the biggest disappointments for me was Hannon Metals. I really thought they were gonna find some mineralization in Ireland. You took the trip there. I mean, I invested in multiple private placements, personal funds, and I just thought that Kilbricken and the way Mike Hudson was talking, and I don't know, it just seemed really good to me. And when those drill results came back, sort of, it was like that was sort of disappointing. My heart sunk a bit on that one because I really thought they had a shot.
Agreed. I still have my stock certificates on my desk, as I tell you all the time. In fairness to Mr. Hudson and Hannon, I did visit the property. I met with the technical team. You know, they're employing some top-notch technology out there. And in fairness to them, they're not done drilling. They'll likely have to raise money here soon, but there may still be a discovery to be had in Ireland. The second part that I'll say is I know that they've recently staked a copper project in Peru. And the other thing they've done well is they've kept their share structure reasonable to where it allows for a miss, frankly. If they do miss on this next target and they have to pivot away from Ireland and they don't reach that target of 10 million tons of 10%, the 10 and 10 rule in Ireland, right? Then they have the flexibility to pivot. And I think it's important for companies and for people listening that speculate in this space to understand that the norm in this industry is exploration companies are going to miss, but a share structure that's reasonably tight allows you the flexibility to pivot to new projects. And so can't overstress how important share structure is. So we'll leave it there. But yeah, disappointment, absolutely. Who do you got number 2?
Allegiant Gold was really disappointing. They had multiple targets identified, multiple projects they were drilling for gold with one of the best geologists in the world who's found multiple projects, and they came up empty as well. That's the spin out from Columbus Gold, if anybody is familiar, and
Nevada properties, right?
That all Nevada properties, right? And Look, I mean, these were properties where we thought we were going to make a discovery, and it's just been nothing yet. And multiple properties have been drilled, and it's always, well, now we're excited about this property. Well, now we're excited about this property, and I know that's how exploration goes, like you just said. I mean, only 1 in 1,000 targets if that becomes a mine, and so there's a lot more failure than success. But nonetheless, it's disappointing.
Absolutely, absolutely. Number 3.
Shall I keep going? American Pacific was really disappointing.
Yeah, that was tough.
They were talking about visible gold when we raised their money. There's been no visible gold at Tuscarora since.
You think it's Nevada? You think there's any gold left in Nevada?
Fucking
Nevada.
We'll see if Dennis Higgs can find it in the groundwater. Who knows?
All right, we'll see. I don't know, man. Nevada, tough. Okay.
Yeah, and the same thing with American Pacific. Now they're looking to pick up other projects. Sort of the same with Hannon. You can sort of read the tea leaves, right? If they were really really happy with the project they had and were drilling, they wouldn't be out there securing additional properties. And then the last one was Millrock. I thought we had mineralization. I thought we had a discovery at La Navidad late in 2017, early 2018. Have raised them money a couple of times now, and obviously Greg Beischer works his ass off and has some great properties. We just haven't seen the discovery yet. And so those would be my 4 disappointments. But like you, I still hold shares. That's our problem, right? We're holders and not sellers.
Fucking eternal optimist, us. I'm sitting here with a stack of certificates. I will take a picture and I'll post it one day. Just stacks and stacks of certificates. Anyway. Yeah. All right, so those are the 4. I got to agree with you on Millrock. I wasn't fond of the 25-cent placement at the time. I thought it was the bottom. It turns out Greg was smart when he raised money at 25 cents because the next one was done at 10 cents. So let's see if 2019 brings us some good luck on the Millrock side. I know they're edging up to a discovery up in Alaska, and they got a lot of land. They got a huge database that I think is valuable, and hopefully we get some news out of that here in the next couple of months. It'll be interesting to see what the strategy will be from Millrock. So we'll see.
I'm holding.
All right. I like it. On my end, I got to say Leading Edge Materials. This is a company that has a fully constructed, fully permitted graphite project in Sweden. Europe is ramping up its search to establish a critical metal supply chain. And obviously you're going to need graphite, cobalt, lithium, all these things, right? Everything that goes into the electrification of everything. Electric vehicles are very real. These are sustainable trends. I thought they were so well positioned and ahead of a megatrend, frankly. They're the only project in that region that's at that advanced stage. They're part of the Northvolt coalition that was raising billions of dollars to secure these minerals and these properties. And, the bottom line is they weren't able to secure the contracts that they needed last year to get the company in front of the market and have the market recognize the value there. I still think there is a lot of value there. I think they'll also have a good 2019. But yeah, 2018 was absolutely disappointing. They have 2 rare earth assets that are very valuable in themselves. And, they just picked up a property in Romania that looks exciting. But, anytime you hear news that the company is looking at a strategic review, then I think you mentioned the tea leaves. I think it's in the cards that we're going to get some reshuffling there of priorities. So I'm curious to see what comes out of that. So Leading Edge Materials would be the one. And you had 4, so I'm going to cap it there. Go ahead, Nick.
I was going to say they were separate before. They were different companies before. Much more of the history, but it might be worth just explaining. They were separate entities before they were Leading Edge Materials.
Yeah, I still have my original Flinders warrant certificates. It's funny that you mentioned that. So, at one point, these are companies that there were 2 companies. It was Flinders and it was Tasman Metals. Yeah, Tasman had the rare earth assets. And, these are companies in 2010 that I did well with. I made good money with them. It was the same group of people. The assets were receiving a lot of attention, mostly because of the rare earth assets on the Tasman side. And people realized that this electrification of everything trend was real. But these are companies that traded, at $3 a share. Tasman at one point, I think, was up to $4 a share. And, they merged the companies. The thought was you make one super critical metals company that has everything, again, from lithium to cobalt to rare earths to graphite. And, right now they sit there with a market cap, I think, of approximately $15 million, $20 million. They're trading for 21 cents Canadian. So different times, but let's see. Hopefully it's a round trip ticket, right?
Everyone's waiting for that bull market.
I like it. I want to talk bull market. I want to talk gold in a little bit, but let's finish out the awards. The top 3 buyout candidates. I have 2. Who do you got?
I know one of yours, so I'm not going to steal it. I'm pretty sure I do anyway. I think I'm going to go back to Atlantic Gold. I think those guys get taken out. There's been a return to sort of merger and acquisition activity where we see that high quality projects need to be taken out. And we know that the recently completed merger between Barrick and Rango Gold, they're looking for projects. There was rumors swirling this week that they could be interested in buying Pretium, but Pretium has some great issues and some.
They have some insider selling issues too.
You said it, fuckers. You said it. Right. And so if you look at quality producing projects in Canada, Atlantic clearly rises to the top of the list. We mentioned the low cost. Stephen Dean comes from a major background. He's very good at grade control. He's kept the project on budget. You've said those things already. I think Atlantic is one that has to get taken out. And then one company that nobody talks about, and really I don't talk about it a lot either, is a company called Teranga Gold. They have a producing mine in Africa. They're building another mine, and they've got a pretty high quality exploration asset as well. They exceeded their production guidance in 2018. They're producing over 100,000 ounces of gold, I believe it is, and the stock has performed quite well. And so just a company called Teranga, Teranga, is one you might want to take a look at. You want to go ahead and talk about Almaden, Gerardo?
You know I do. We speculate in the resource space for one reason and one reason only, right? Because we want to make money. We know it's volatile. We know what to look for. You look for share structure. You look for great management. You look for people that have had success in the past doing what they're now looking to duplicate. And I think Almaden is a perfect example of a great asset with great management, great exploration potential, and the market, frankly, just didn't give a shit for most of 2018. They hit a 52-week low on November the 14th of 48 cents. This is on the U.S. side.
Are they back to a 52-week high yet?
They're close. They're at 82 cents. They're at 82 cents. They've nearly doubled, and the 52-week high is it's $1.02. So they're 20 cents away. So that's why we do what we do in this market. I've been buying on the way down. I've been urging subscribers. For those that don't know, Nick Hodge writes 3 premium subscription-based newsletters. I write 2. We're not here to plug those. It's cheesy, but just giving you some context. I've been urging subscribers to double down and to buy on the way down. And so that's paid off. The stock went from 50 cents on the US side to just shy of 90 cents in the course of a week and a half. So Almaden Minerals, I think they just had a feasibility study that was absolutely fantastic. The IRR was great. The net present value is 3 to 4 times of the current the current market cap. There's a ton of exploration potential. I've been to the project. The community is really behind it. You have your typical
mill.
What's that?
The mill.
The mill. Oh, everybody forgets the mill. And what do? I forget the mill. So they have a mint condition mill that is being shipped to Mexico. And a little history on this mill. It was up and running for 2 months. The crisis hit back in the days. And it's a $70 million mill, brand new. It operated for 2 months. They shut it down. They were able to come in and use the bear market and scoop this thing up for something like $6-7 million in total consideration. So that's how you use a bear market to your advantage. That mill alone is worth almost the entire market cap of Almaden. It's got a market cap right now, even after this recent run up, of 88 million US. And that mill, the mint condition mill, shaved something like $70 million from the capex. So, you get 4.5 million gold equivalent ounces. It's a polymetallic deposit, equal parts gold and silver, tons of exploration upside. 93% of the property is untouched. They own their own drills. They're going to be drilling again soon. And you have a market cap of 88 million. So what are you going to do, right? Tough market.
Buying 4.5 million gold equivalent ounces for free is good work in my book if you can get it.
It's good work if you can get it. Absolutely. And the other one that I got, I know that you had a couple and I had one, and that makes 3, but let's add one more in there. You got to talk about Midas Gold, and I'll let you talk a bit about Midas. We're both familiar with both shareholders, I believe. Huge fan of Stephen Quinn and that team. We mentioned Liz earlier on the IR side. Why should we like Midas Gold, Nick?
You should like Midas Gold because it's in Idaho, so it's in the U.S., a friendly mining jurisdiction. It's got 6 million proven ounces of gold there, and there's likely 2.5 to 3, maybe more times that amount there. They're already going through permitting, albeit it's been delayed a bit, but nothing with the government is ever on time, and so they're working through the permitting now. There's so many superlatives. It would be like the third or fourth largest, highest grade open pit mine in the country once it's built. It's got a lot of antimony there, which is a critical element that America currently produces none of. That's a critical flame retardant for military applications and other applications. And I think the reason you're mentioning it as a buyout candidate is the sulfur thing that yes. The market is starting to be aware of now with Barrick Gold. And we've already said that Barrick Gold wants to make acquisitions of top tier projects. Well, it doesn't get much more top tier than the Stibnite project that Midas Gold has. And so there's this whole technical thing, and I'm not a technical guy, but apparently Barrick's Gold Strike mine in Nevada needs higher sulfur content ore to help make their operations go smoothly. That's my technical word, make it go better. And and if you draw a 500-mile circle around Gold Strike, one of the best projects in that circle is Midas Gold. That meets Barrick's criteria. And guess what? Oh, it also has the right amount of sulfur content in its ore. So, for all those reasons plus more, I think that Midas Gold gets taken out. I hope it's at much higher prices than we currently sit at, but it's one of the highest quality undeveloped gold projects, not just in the country, but the world, and great people behind it as well. And yes, I'm a shareholder.
I absolutely agree. I'll throw in upper quartile as far as grades go. We know they have at least 6.6 million ounces. You and I were at the project, I believe, last year. We looked at the mountain that hosts the other 14 million ounces. We've speculated there's 20 million there. I know Steven hates when he does that. When we do that, he hates when we say there's 20 million ounces there. But look, the bottom line, all jokes aside, is that there's tons of exploration potential, and you have a 6.6 million ounce head start. Upper quartile, and again, a project that's actually going to do a lot of good in regards to reclamation and cleaning up the mess that previous miners back during the war days left. So a lot to like there. A project the Salmon would probably vote yes on. Agreed?
No doubt. And the communities as well. So Midas has done a great job of putting together community coalitions. I believe they just had a meeting this week to get the town of McCall, I believe it was, to join that coalition. But other city councils have already voted in favor. I forgot to mention the Salmon, but yeah, this has already been a mine back in the World War days. It provided that critical antimony that I was talking about. And back then there was no environmental regulations, right? So they just did whatever they had to do to get the minerals out of the ground and left the site like it was. So the river has been shut down since I think the 1920s or something like that, or the 1930s, and no salmon have been able to migrate. And so yeah, the Salmon would definitely vote in favor of this project. And just to explain quickly why Stephen Quinn hates when we say there's 15 or 20 million ounces there, it's a strategic thing, right? We don't just say that for laughs, and we don't just say that to say there's 20 million ounces there, but it's harder to get a giant project permitted. Just ask Northern Dynasty. It's much harder to get a big project permitted. So it's easier for them to permit 5 or 6 million ounces, and then after they get the permit, say, oh, by the way, there's 10 or 15 million more ounces here, than it is to say, hey, we've got 15 or 20 million ounces of gold, and we want to permit this giant gold project right now. It's easier to get a smaller project permitted, and that's why the company likes to be tight-lipped about how much gold is really there, because they want the regulatory bodies to think they're just permitting a small project, when in fact I think it's going to be much bigger down the road.
Liz,
and that's it.
Steven, if you're listening, stop listening if you're listening, Steve. Don't listen anymore, Steven. We're not going to tell anybody about the other 14 million ounces. Sorry, guys. All right. What else do we got? Let me ask you a question real quick. And this just came up in my brain. Is Idaho the new Nevada? You have companies like Revival Gold that's having a lot of success bringing back, the past producing Bear Track project. You have Midas Gold. You have other companies in the state that are exploring and frankly, Integra put out some amazing results. I think it was like a 400-meter step out of the known resource. And we talked about the failure of some of the exploration companies recently in Nevada. And don't get me wrong, there's been success, obviously, in Nevada has been the kingmaker of companies for a long time. But is Idaho the new Nevada?
Yeah, I was going to mention Integra as well. That was over 100-meter hit they had of 2.5 gram equivalent gold. So that's quite the hole. And that was from a company that was relatively silent over the past 4 to 6 months. They really haven't put out much news. And look, they put out one hole, and the stock has gone from below 65 cents to 90 cents in less than a month. And so, yeah, it speaks to how fast quality junior mining companies can move. But to your Idaho point, look, Revival Gold has, I think, averaged over a gram a ton across all the holes that they've drilled. Obviously, Midas is there, Otis is there, Integra is there. There's some growing cobalt exploration, and we know that it has a really mining-friendly governor in Butch Otter, although he's now coming to the end of his reign there. It's not too often that you get the governor of the state you're operating in to go on a roadshow with you to help you raise money and tell the bankers how friendly the state is. Regulatory wise and politically wise to mining. And that's exactly what the governor did last year with that I think they call it Idaho Mining Days or something like that. And it's back to Liz Monger, who helped put that together. Midas's IR person, credit to her. But when you have the governor going out on roadshows with you, it sort of says, hey, my state's open for mining business, and the resources that are being found there speak for themselves.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. It wouldn't be a maiden podcast, Nick, if we didn't talk Trump. It makes for an awesome hashtag. It pisses people off. It makes people happy. I don't know. Trump is like Tesla, right? I get on Twitter sometimes, and man, some of the so-called smartest people either just like fan crush Tesla or like completely hate Tesla. It's like there's no in between. Trump is kind of like the same thing. So should we talk Trump?
I mean, I'll talk Trump if you want. I'm not a big Trump talker, but I certainly won't shy away from it. Do
it for the hashtag, Nick. Do it for the hashtag.
Yeah, do it for the hashtag. Look, I mean, the same people. People that were fanboys. You say fanboys. People that were fanboys of Obama are vitriolic against Trump, right? And they hate him. But they hate him for some of the same things that Obama has done. And I'm sort of an apolitical, agnostic person. I'm a libertarian. I don't try to mess with either of the parties. But just take the shutdown, for instance. Everybody's railing against Trump for shutting down the government, and just separate the wall out for a second. These TSA agents aren't getting their paychecks. The national parks are closed. This and that. He's the worst person ever. But everybody forgets that in 2013, Obama shut down the government to force policy down our throats as well. It's just a presidential tactic. But I don't recall the people who are currently so angry at Trump being angry at Obama when he shut down the government. And that just speaks to partisanship, right? I mean, it's like you're just mad because he's a Republican, or you're just mad because he's a Democrat. You're not mad because of the shutdown. You're mad because of who is behind the shutdown. And to me, that's just hollow. I'd call it fake outrage. It's like you're just upset to be upset, right? I mean, right. That's my take anyway.
I agree. I think I share similar sentiments when it comes to politics. There's issues that I lean more left, and there's issues that I lean more right on. Chris Rock's got that famous joke that when it comes to guns and the Second Amendment, I tend to be more of a libertarian and a Republican in the sense that I value the Second Amendment. I think it's important. I think there's a smart way to honor that, and that's a whole different discussion for another day. But when it comes to my niece and my sister and my mom, I'm more conservative, right? Like That was the great Chris Rock line. So I think that partisanship in this country and globally, frankly, but let's keep it to the US for now, is the cancer that is preventing actual governing from happening. I think that, this antiquated system of voting for people, of voting for the favorite Kardashian, right, is really hollowing out the best parts of this country, whether you're for Trump or against Trump. I look forward to a days where we could vote on ideas. I look forward to a day where, a group of elected representatives present ideas and you vote on that, not on people. I see the young lady from New York and, they found a video from high school or college or whatever it was. And oh my God, she was dancing and having fun. You're mad about a girl in college that was dancing and having fun? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? It's weird. It's odd. But I share similar sentiments. I will say this. Do you think Trump gets a bad rap from the media? I notice sometimes that, he's done some good things. There's a lot I disagree with. I think he's a bonehead on a lot of fronts, and a child in some senses. But he's done some good things. He's got some hostages freed. He's brought China back to the table on IP theft, very real and consequential intellectual property theft, right? These are good things. Do you think he gets the credit that he deserves for the good stuff that he's done? We all know he gets bashed for the bad stuff, and rightfully so a lot of times, but he's done some good things.
There's been some criminal justice reform as well. And so, no, look, he doesn't get any. And I'm not a Trump supporter, and I hate that I have to say that whenever I defend Trump or bash the media, but that's just where we are.
I'm Mexican.
He doesn't get any credit. Yeah,
Mexican American. I got to preface everything with, hey, I'm not a Trump supporter. We can get around the wall. I joked in the newsletter this last month that, I talked to all 129 million Mexicans and nobody gives a shit about the wall. Like, the only people that care about the wall are the Republicans and the Democrats. Nobody really cares about the wall. The wall's not going to do anything. You could waste the taxpayer money. It's not going to make a bit of difference. Most of the illegal people and the illegal drugs and everything, it goes through because of corrupt border patrol agents and tunnels and everything almost but an entry point. So, yeah, that's a whole nother discussion. But back to your point.
I was reading the testimony from the El Chapo case this week. I was reading some of the testimony, and that was crazy, Gerardo. You probably know more about it than I do, being Mexican American. But he was talking about it was like Guzman's right-hand man's son who was testifying, and this was the guy that's supposed to take over the Sinaloa cartel, his dad.
Shout out to Vice. Vice has been doing a great job reporting on that.
Yeah, I guess his dad has been running the Sinaloa cartel, and he sort of laid it all out, like who was getting bribed, military officials who were getting like 50, 60 grand a month, how his dad had $1 million a month bribe budget. But the thing that was really struck me was he was talking about a meeting they had with Pemex officials. This is like the National Oil Corporation, right? Yes. And he was talking about shipping kilos of cocaine on the oil tankers, man. And I was like, holy shit, that runs deep.
Yes. And it, without getting too much into it, yes, it runs deep. I'll leave it there because that's a discussion that we should probably save for another day and get a little bit more in depth about. But it doesn't just speak to the corruption on the Mexican side. It also speaks to the corruption on the U.S. side. It was interesting to me that during the testimony, the prosecutor and the judge refused to allow Mr. Guzman's lawyer to talk about the Fast and Furious operation, right? Which anybody in Mexico can tell you is where all the guns are coming from. I mean, it is what it is. We're talking hundreds of thousands of guns, and they refused to allow that testimony because they said it would compromise active operations, which of course means that they're still sending guns that way. So it cuts both ways. It's a deeper conversation. Hundreds of thousands of people have died, have been raped, have been, extorted, have been kidnapped. I'll share a funny, not funny story with you. I have a cousin who was accidentally kidnapped during his midterm in college. This is in Zacatecas, Mexico, where my family's from. He was taking his midterm, and the teacher said that he was wanted at the office. So he went to the office, and there were these guys sitting there with, semi-automatic rifles, and they put a hood on them and they took him. And as they're driving around with my cousin goes, "What are you guys doing?" And he goes, "Is this your name?" And he goes, "Yeah." And they start telling him, "Well, you're doing this and you're doing that." And he goes, "No, I'm not that guy." So to make a long story short, they thought he was someone else. And unfortunately for my cousin, he shared the same name as this guy. And what's funny, not funny, is the kidnappers already had him. So they were like, fuck it. Let's get some money out of this kid. We're not going to get what we thought we were going to get, but let's call the family up. And, it took about a week and a half and people pitching in to get him back.
Jesus.
That's one story, right? And again, this is a kid who is doing nothing. This is a good kid in college, studying to be an attorney, taking midterms, minding his business, the most square cousin I have probably. And he's the one that ends up getting kidnapped, man, accidentally. So yeah. Deeper discussion, deeper dive. We'll do that one day.
And affects people that obviously have nothing to do with it. So yeah, terrible. And I still remember what your question was. It was about Trump. So we can get back to that. Yep. Yeah, look, an example I saw this week was about how the IRS was still going to issue refunds while the government was shut down. And I saw somebody post the headlines from various news outlets that were covering that particular story. And the one that was sort of in the middle was, I think it was Fortune or Forbes, said something like IRS working to make sure you get refunds while government is shut down, which is cut and dried. That's what the story is. But then you had like CNBC say, no way Trump is going to be able to give you your refund during his shutdown. And Vox is saying something like, experts don't think Trump is going to be able to pay your refund. So it's clear that there's like, I mean, it's just media bias. It's been around for decades, if not longer. And so it's just part of the game, right? You got to be able to see through it. And the problem is that a lot of people don't want to.
You and I have talked about The Fourth Turning in the past. We've had private conversations, and phenomenal book for those of you that have not read it. Do you have faith that the youth, I know historically, cyclically, it's how it happens, right? But do you have faith that the youth of today will see past the bullshit on both sides and actually pull, government's heads out of their collective ass?
Yeah, I do. I think it's going to take a bit of time. I'll wax a bit philosophical for you. I think that these I
told you guys he was smart.
I think that these millennials are just now coming of age, and I count myself among sort of the oldest millennials. We were born in like 1982, 83, 84, and I'm 35 years old. I'm just now having kids, putting down roots, and the majority of the millennials, which we know there are tens of millions, it's quite a large cohort of people. They were born all the way until the year 2000, 2001, 2002. So some of those millennials aren't even 18 yet. And as we've seen over the last half century, it takes longer for Americans to come of age, to mature. Not physically, I'm talking about mentally, because we're delayed a bit now. We either live with our parents longer, or we get degrees and then we don't start our career until we're 25 or 26. And so we really don't get that political intelligence and development and that emotional control until much later in life. And I think that until the majority of the millennials get that, it's hard for them to inflect change and run for office and be taken as serious politicians. But I think it's coming. You mentioned AOC from New York. She's gaining some traction. Look at the kids from the school shooting. Hogg is his last name. The young kid is getting a voice. And so I think it's going to happen. I think we're smack dab in the middle of this fourth turning. I think it still has a long way to turn, but I think you're seeing good things come about. We're seeing legalization of marijuana. We're seeing the eradication of marijuana related offenses on the criminal side. We're seeing police being held accountable. We're seeing finally priests being held accountable. And these are much bigger things that have to do with the fourth turning. The fourth turning is about realigning our priorities as a society, and then in turn those priorities being reflected in our institutions. And I think we're a long, long way from getting on the path that we need to be on. I think the 2020 presidential election will be very interesting in that respect.
And we're also seeing finally people, corporations, not governments yet, but I think overall we're seeing people taking a step towards really appreciating and valuing women, right? And not saying they're better or they're worse, but you do a job, you deserve the same pay that a man would get. It should be based on skill set. And it's amazing to me that it's 2019 and we're just starting to have this conversation, right? It's crazy to me.
It's taken a long time, and it's some of the studies I've seen are, I don't necessarily know how they sit with me, because I'm obviously all for equality, but I'm for merit-based equality. And so
Absolutely.
some of the things I see where we're just counting up. And I'll give you one example just because I saw it this week. It was like 3 PhDs. And so this is like PhD level research now, right?
Right.
They basically just counted up the number of films that were directed by women in the past. I think it was like 10 or 15 years versus men, and said, well, I think only 3% of the films were directed by women. And obviously their takeaway is, well, women are underrepresented as directors in Hollywood. And that may be the case, but for me, things are merit-based, and I'm also big on the market. And so I might sound a little bit sexist here, but what's the reason that there aren't more female directors? Is it merit-based? Is it are they being ostracized by the men? And taking it back further, this is a discussion I'd love to have. How did the men get in a position where they were in control anyway? I mean, what is the Yeah, I mean, why weren't the women in control to begin with? I mean, like you said, check yourself at the door for this podcast. If the women were truly equal, like, why aren't they just truly equal from the beginning? Why on their own merits and their own tenacity and their own directorship prowess aren't they directing more films? And I don't know if that's right or wrong. That's just my gut take when I see studies like that. And furthermore, why the fuck did you spend $150,000 to get your PhD to count up female directors?
Right. Yeah, and I think that's that's the funniest part of your statement, but probably the least important. Let's talk about. I'll bite on this discussion because I think it's important. I would answer your question by saying, and let's just talk the U.S. again. The institutions in place in this country when the country was founded, air quotes, was set up by white men. That's just a fact, right? A consequence of that was a constitution that, again, favored white men. Can we agree on that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I think if we want to take it all the way back, I think the founding fathers, frankly, set up a system that would ensure that they could maintain and sustain power for multiple generations. I don't believe minorities or women were looked at as equal partners, even privately a lot of times, right? Definitely not publicly. So if you and I set up a community and we set up, in effect, our own homeowners association with our own rules, we get to call the shots on how that happens, right? So if a young Mexican kid or a young black kid or a low-income white kid can't go to the right universities and meet the right people, they're never going to learn how to become a city council person or a governor or, shit, God forbid, a president one day, right? It's just not going to happen because a large part of the way success in America happens is that network of people that you're able to access. I think women for hundreds of years have been not allowed in to those positions of power. I think it's turning. I think we're starting to see it. But again, when we talk about should it be merit-based, everything should be merit-based, right? I don't think that, me being a Mexican-American kid, right? Both my parents from Mexico. I joke that I was made in Mexico, but born in the U.S., and that's true. My mother came to this country when she was 5 months pregnant. They came, they wanted a better life. They worked for 30 years. Then they moved back to Mexico. I was lucky enough to be born in Los Angeles and have dual citizenship. But should I be allowed entry into a university just because I'm of Mexican descent? Absolutely fucking not, right? It should be merit-based. Should I get the nod to direct a movie just because I can fill the quota? I joke all the time because frankly, we're in an industry that doesn't see a lot of minority people participating. And I joke that I'm like the token Mexican that fills up the quota for everybody and makes everybody feel good. But, I think there's really a system set up from the get that made it very, very difficult for women to vote, for women to participate, for women to get equal pay once they made it through the door. And I think we're still there to a large extent. That's my quick take on that.
You should meet my one black friend. No, I'm joking. This is what I...
Shout out to Nick's one black friend. We got to hashtag that one. My one black friend.
This is what I would say, and then we could get off the heavy topics. The founding fathers were clearly flawed. If everyone is created equal, but slavery is equal, that's sort of a non-starter. And two is, if we take it all the way back before the founding fathers, I mean, what were they probably thinking, right? We won this hard out. Like, we are the white men that won. The Native Americans didn't win. The French didn't win. The English didn't win. The Mexicans didn't win. The white men, I mean, they won the right. And if you're talking about merit-based in 1776, I mean, there's no more merit-based than beating the British Army. I mean, that's what it was. You know what I mean? So that's all I got.
That brings up another interesting question. I told you you'd be ranting and raving, whatever came to mind, right? So if that earned the founding fathers, and I agree with you, by the way, the right? To the winner goes the spoils. Is that the right way to take it back?
Well, that's sort of what I was thinking about while you were talking, and I don't know the answer. It's not 1776 anymore. I don't know that you could, given the level of government intrusion and spying. I'm not sure you could form a coalition to take on the government these days. But I think some of that sentiment is still running through us. I live in Eastern Washington, man. We still have militias and stuff. I mean, just last year we had Oregon farmers facing off against the government, and in fact won. And so those currents are still alive and well.
I was there recently. You were my white privileged friend. I made sure I went everywhere with you, Nick. Catching me outside by myself. Shit. All right. Well, we'll get back to that. We're going to talk about that another day, another time. That's interesting. That was interesting. It's a good conversation. All right, Nick, what else you got? We've been rambling for 45 minutes. Should we let him off the hook or should we keep going?
Yeah, I just want to talk about a couple positive things.
All right. We talked slavery. We talked racism. We talked sexism. Let's talk about a lot of positive stuff.
So I didn't know until recently. In fact, my mother-in-law told me when she was here visiting for Christmas, because she's an animal person, but I didn't know how many male chicks were killed annually. I guess in industrial farming, the males obviously don't lay eggs, so they're not profitable in that respect. And because they're males, they take too much input requirements. It's too expensive to feed them, to turn them into meat birds. So what happens is after they're born, like billions with a B of male chicks just get like industrially slaughtered like 2 days after they're hatched, which I didn't even know was a thing. Huh. Well, just lately, and you didn't either, it sounds like.
No, it sounds like a merit-based system.
Yeah. And so this German company has now found a way to identify the sex of the chicken in the egg so that the chicken companies don't have to hatch the ones that are going to be male. And so they don't have to kill the male chicks. They can only let the eggs that are going to be hens actually hatch. And it only adds like a penny or two per dozen of eggs. And that's just a development in the past 3 weeks. So I thought that was quite interesting and positive. And we'll put links up to some of the things we talked about below the podcast. And then just one more interesting thing I thought I'd share this week, because I'm into sort of animals and the outdoors, is scientists have discovered that whales sing. And some whales, they start a song when they're young, and they'll develop a song until it gets to a certain complexity, sometimes for 12 or 15 or 20 years. And then once it reaches a certain complexity, they stop singing the song and start over on a new one. And I just thought that was too fascinating not to share. So we'll put a link up to that as well. And last thing for me, and then I'll shut up, is Ray Dalio penned a pretty long piece. Yes. I think it was last week or early this week, sort of framing what he sees going on in the economy, given that the Fed is still raising, but we have some mixed economic signals. Housing is soft in some places, but employment is is still very strong. Apple cut earnings, but there's some other positive lights. And so I just thought that the piece that he wrote about the long-term and the short-term debt cycle and how the Fed is involved in that and how it creates wealth disparity and translates into things you're seeing in the stock market and economy was very smart. So we'll put the link up to that. And that's it. I'm done.
I encourage everybody to read Mr. Dalio's latest book, and we'll find the name for it and put the link up. But it's well written. It's a great story. This is a guy. I'll share one funny story from the book who's always been an outsider, right? He started his fund from his apartment in Queens, and it happened as a result of necessity. He worked at this brokerage, and he thought it would be funny to hire, we talked about merit-based systems and opportunity and equality, and I'm going to tell you this fucking story. So he hired a stripper to come to the firm for the boss, and the boss did not find it amusing and fired him. And so, he was this late 20, early 30-something kid from Queens trying to figure life out. And he said, you know what, I'll start my own fund. And here we are, many billions later, right? So yep. Fascinating book. It's about, a commitment to radical truth and transparency. And it also has some good, obviously funny tidbits and stories and personal details. But if you're on a plane trip or a rail ride or whatever the heck you do, go buy a book, read a little bit. It's good for your brain. It's good stuff.
Good stuff. I'll have to read it. I actually haven't read it. And I lied. I'm not done yet. I have to tell you that I'll be speaking at the Vancouver Resource Investment Conference.
The shameless plug. I'm not going to let you do it, Nick. Fuck that. No. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
January 20th and 21st, link below in Vancouver. If you're around, just come say hi.
Fantastic. And in all jokes aside, can you give us the name of the conference again?
Yeah, it's the Vancouver Resource Investment Conference. It's one of the biggest in the sector outside of PDAC, and January 20th, 21st at the Vancouver Convention Center.
Fantastic. Well, we talked 2018. We handed out some awards. We talked the Trumpster guy. We talked whales, man. That was awesome. And and the founding fathers and, how they were kind of dicks. Not all of them, but most of them. I think that's it. Do you have anything else for this week, Nick? I know we got tons of stuff. We could keep going forever, but anything else that's important to you? Should we look ahead next week?
Just watch the gold price, watch the crypto price. Things are happening.
What happened to all the crypto gurus? Where are they at? I heard you shouting them out earlier on Twitter, or saw you shouting them out. What happened to all those guys?
They're only gurus when Bitcoin is above 15,000.
Man, is that the way that works?
Yep.
Tough. All right. Well, hopefully we see them again. That was interesting, right?
That's exactly right. I think they'll be back.
Good stuff. All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us. Next week, I think we'll definitely be looking forward to 2019. We'll talk gold. We'll talk cobalt. We'll talk what to expect, what we expect, and companies we like, and what's out there that maybe you might be able to make a penny on. Does that sound good, Nick?
Sounds good. Sounds fun.
Appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Bizarro World, episode 1.